You built the strategy. You tested it. You watched it work on historical charts. You saw the setups form cleanly. You saw the entries line up. You saw the targets get hit. And you told yourself, this is it. This is the system I'm going to follow. Then the market opened, and something changed. Not the strategy, not the setups, not the structure. You. The first trade formed exactly according to the plan. Entry criteria met, risk defined, everything aligned. But your hand hesitated over the mouse. A thought appeared. What if this one doesn't work? So you waited for one more confirmation, one more candle, one more reason to feel sure. And by the time you felt sure enough, the entry was gone. Or you took it late and it stopped you out. And the doubt that was already there deepened. Then came the next trade. Same setup, same criteria, same hesitation. This time you entered, but the moment it moved slightly against you, you exited early. You told yourself you were managing risk, but the strategy said hold. The plan said hold. You didn't hold, and price moved to your target without you. Here is the question nobody asks directly. If you trust your strategy, why do you keep overriding it? Why do you keep hesitating at the entry? Why do you keep exiting before the target? Why do you keep adjusting rules mid-trade? The answer is not that your strategy is flawed. The answer is that you do not actually trust it. Not fully. Not yet. And in this video, we are going to examine exactly why that trust breaks down, what is happening psychologically when doubt overrides discipline, and what the path to genuine strategic trust actually looks like. Because the strategy is not the problem. Your relationship with it is. Let's go deep. Part 1. What trust actually means in trading. Most traders say they trust their strategy. Ask them directly, and they will confirm it without hesitation. Yes, I trust my system. Yes, I believe in my approach. Yes, I know it works. But trust is not what you say. Trust is how consistently you execute. And execution tells a different story. Because the trader who truly trusts their strategy does not hesitate at valid entries. They do not exit early when price moves temporarily against them. They do not skip setups that match the criteria because this one feels different. They execute repeatedly, mechanically, with the same consistency that a surgeon follows a procedure or a pilot follows a checklist, not because they feel certain about the outcome, but because they trust the process that produced the strategy. They trust the testing, the logic, the historical evidence, the defined edge. When that trust is genuine, when it exists at the level of behavior, not just belief, execution becomes consistent. And consistent execution is the only way a strategy can demonstrate its edge. An edge that is never executed consistently is an edge that can never be proven, which means most traders are spending their careers doubting strategies they have never actually tested, because testing requires consistent execution, and consistent execution requires genuine trust. And genuine trust is exactly what most traders lack, not because their strategies are bad, because their relationship with uncertainty is not yet strong enough to execute through it. Part 2. The neuroscience of doubt. Let's go inside the brain. Because strategic doubt is not a logical conclusion, it is a neurological response. And understanding that distinction changes how you address it. When a strategic trading strategy is followed and produces a loss, the brain's error detection system activates. The anterior cingulate cortex, which monitors for discrepancies between expected and actual outcomes, fires a signal. Something went wrong. Adjust. In most areas of life, this signal is useful. It prompts learning, it drives improvements, it prevents the repetition of mistakes. But in trading, this signal creates a specific and destructive problem. Because in trading, a loss does not mean something went wrong. It means the probability distribution expressed itself. It means one of the expected losing trades within the strategy's normal distribution occurred. It means nothing needs to change. But the interior cingulate cortex does not know that. It only knows that an expected outcome did not occur and signals for adjustment, for change, for a different approach next time. That signal is experienced as doubt, as the feeling that the strategy needs modification, as the urge to add a filter, change a rule, wait for more confirmation. And when that signal is acted upon, when the strategy is modified in response to a normal losing trade, the trader has begun a cycle that will never end. Because the next losing trade will produce another signal, another doubt, another modification, until the strategy has been changed so many times it no longer resembles what was originally tested, and the trader, looking at poor results, concludes the strategy never worked, when in reality, the strategy was never given a fair trial. There is also a second neurological layer specific to trust breakdown. When doubt is present, when the stress response is active and confidence is shaken, the prefrontal cortex becomes less decisive. Decision-making slows. The threshold for action rises. More evidence is required before the brain feels safe enough to commit. This manifests in trading as the need for additional confirmation, one more candle, one more indicator aligning, one more reason to feel sure. But additional confirmation in trading is not free. It costs entry quality. Every additional confirmation required delays entry. Delayed entry means worse positioning. Worse positioning means the risk to reward of the trade has deteriorated. And deteriorated risk to reward means the strategy, even when correctly identified, cannot perform as designed. Doubt does not just prevent action, it degrades the quality of the action that does occur. Part 3. The role of losses in breaking trust. Losses weaken trust. This is predictable, unavoidable, and almost universal among traders who have not yet developed process-based confidence. After a few consecutive losses, a specific sequence of thoughts begins. Is this strategy still working? Maybe market conditions have changed. Maybe this edge no longer exists. Maybe I need to adjust. These thoughts feel analytical. They feel like responsible self-assessment, like the mature response of a serious trader to underperformance. But in most cases, they are not analytical at all. They are emotional responses to the discomfort of loss wearing the costume of analysis. Because here is the mathematical reality. Every strategy with a genuine edge will produce losing streaks, not occasionally, regularly, predictably. A strategy with a 60% win rate will produce streaks of 5 or more consecutive losses with statistical regularity, not as a sign of failure, as the normal expression of a 60% probability. The remaining 40% of losing trades does not distribute itself evenly across every 10 trades. It clusters. Sometimes 3 losses in a row, sometimes 5, sometimes more. And when those clusters occur, when the losing streak arrives on schedule within the strategy's normal distribution, the trader who has not internalized this reality interprets the streak as signal, as evidence that the strategy has stopped working, as justification for doubt, and the doubt drives behavior change. The entries become more hesitant, the rules become more flexible, the exits become earlier, the position sizes become smaller, and the strategy, already in a normal losing period, is now being executed so differently that it cannot recover even when the winning trades arrive. because the winning trades are being exited early, because the sizing has been reduced, because the entries are being taken late. The strategy did not fail. Its trust in it did. And when trust fails, execution fails with it. Part 4. The feedback loop of broken trust. Let's trace the full cycle precisely, because it is more systematic than most traders realize. It begins with a strategy that has a genuine edge. The trader executes it consistently for a period. Results are positive. Confidence is building. Trust feels solid. Then a losing streak arrives. Normal variance, expected within the distribution, but experienced as failure. Trust weakens. The trader begins hesitating at entries. A valid setup forms. The trader waits for one more confirmation. The confirmation arrives. The entry is taken late. Poor positioning means the stop is hit on a trade that would have worked from the original entry. Another loss. Trust weakens further. The next valid setup forms. The trader skips it entirely. Price moves to the target. A missed winner. The trader is now behind where consistent execution would have placed them. The following trade, the trader enters, but sizes down because confidence is low. It wins, but the reduced size means the win does not offset the previous losses adequately. Results look poor. The trader concludes the strategy is not working. They begin modifying it. New filter added, new confirmation required. The modified strategy is different enough that the historical testing that validated the original no longer applies. The trader is now running an untested system, with low confidence, after a period of inconsistent execution and wondering why results are not improving. This is the feedback loop of broken trust, and it is not driven by a bad strategy. It is driven by the inability to execute consistently through normal variance. The solution is not a better strategy. It is a better relationship with uncertainty. Part 5. The need for immediate validation. One of the deepest roots of strategic distrust is a specific and rarely examined expectation. The expectation that a valid strategy should produce immediate positive results. That if the edge is real, it should be visible quickly. That a few losing trades are acceptable, but a losing week is a warning sign. That a losing month is evidence the system has failed. But this expectation is mathematically unfounded. Edge in trading is a statistical phenomenon. It exists over a large sample of trades, not in any individual trade, not in any single month, not even necessarily in any single month. A strategy with a genuine edge can underperform for extended periods due to normal variance. This is not a defect. It is the nature of probability. But traders who need immediate validation cannot survive these periods. They interpret short-term underperformance as long-term failure. They make changes that reset the sample. They never accumulate enough consistent execution to allow the edge to express itself. And so, they spend their careers testing strategies that are abandoned before they can be proven. Not because the strategies lacked edge, because the trader lacked the patience to allow the statistical distribution to play out. The shift required is fundamental. From evaluating strategy performance in terms of short-term results, to evaluating it in terms of process adherence over a minimum sample size. 100 trades, executed consistently according to the defined rules. That is the minimum sample required to begin drawing meaningful conclusions about a strategy's performance. Most traders never reach it with any single approach, because doubt intervenes at trade 20, or trade 30, or trade 50, and the sample is reset. Again. Part 6. Lessons from professional traders. Some of the clearest insights about strategic trust come from professionals who have maintained confidence in their process through extended periods of underperformance. One principle shared consistently among experienced traders is this: trust the process, evaluate the behavior, never evaluate the strategy based on short-term results alone. When a professional experiences a losing streak, their evaluation framework does not start with the strategy, it starts with execution. Did I follow the rules? Did I enter at the correct levels? Did I honor my stops? Did I exit at my targets? If the answer to all of these is yes, if execution was clean, then the losing streak is variance. The strategy is not in question. The execution is. And clean execution through a losing period is not failure. It is the professional standard. Another principle observed among professionals who have managed systematic strategies across multiple market cycles. A strategy that is modified in response to every losing streak has never actually been tested, because testing requires consistent application, and consistent application requires trusting the process through losing periods. The professional commitment is not to win every week. It is to execute correctly every week, and to allow the sample size to accumulate until the edge can speak for itself. That commitment to process over outcome, to execution over result, is what separates traders who build genuine confidence from traders who cycle endlessly through new systems. Part 7. Over-adjustment and the instability trap. When trust is low, the urge to modify is constant. New indicators, new filters, new confirmation requirements, new rules. Each modification feels like improvement, like responding intelligently to what the market is showing you, like the responsible evolution of a serious trader. But each modification resets the clock, because a modified strategy is a different strategy, and a different strategy requires a new sample of consistent execution to evaluate, which means the trader is perpetually at sample size 0, perpetually in the early stages of testing, never accumulating the execution history that would allow genuine confidence to develop. This is the instability trap. The trader modifies to reduce doubt, but modification prevents the accumulation of evidence that would actually eliminate doubt. So the doubt remains, and the next losing streak produces another modification, and the cycle continues. The exit from this trap is not a better strategy. It is a commitment to execute the current strategy consistently for a defined minimum period, regardless of short-term results, and only then evaluate whether modification is warranted. That commitment is uncomfortable, because it means sitting through losing periods without changing anything, without doing something to feel more in control. But control in trading is not achieved through constant modification. It is achieved through consistent execution, and consistent execution is the only path to genuine strategic trust. Part 8. Practical tools for rebuilding strategic trust. Let's get concrete. The first tool is the minimum commitment contract. Before the next trading period begins, write a commitment statement. I will execute this strategy consistently for the next 100 trades without modifying the core rules. I will evaluate performance only after this sample is complete. 100 trades. No modifications to entry criteria. No modifications to stop placement. No modifications to exit rules. 100 trades of consistent execution. At the end of that period, the data speaks. Not the doubt, the data. If execution was clean and results are negative after 100 trades, that is meaningful information about the strategy. If execution was inconsistent, the data tells you nothing about the strategy. only about the execution. The second tool is the execution scorecard. After every trade, grade yourself on 4 criteria. Did I enter at the correct level according to my rules? Did I place my stop at the defined location? Did I exit at my target or stop without overwriting? Did I take the trade when the criteria were met without skipping it? Score each criterion yes or no. Your execution score across 100 trades tells you everything. A high execution score with poor results means variance. A low execution score with poor results means behavioral breakdown. Only one of these requires strategy modification. The other requires behavioral correction. The third tool is the doubt journal. Every time you feel the urge to modify the strategy, override a rule, or skip a valid setup, write it down before acting. The specific doubt, the specific urge, the specific modification being considered. Then ask one question. Is this based on statistical evidence from a minimum sample of consistent execution? Or is this based on emotional discomfort from recent losses? If the answer is emotional, and it almost always is, do not act on the urge. Write it down, keep trading, review it at the end of the defined evaluation period. Externalizing the doubt removes its urgency, and removing urgency is the first step to removing its power over your behavior. The fourth tool is the process affirmation, written at the top of your trading plan for every session. My edge exists over a series of trades, not in any individual trade. My job today is to execute one trade correctly. The results of this trade do not define the strategy. My execution of it does. That statement, read before every session, gradually rewires the brain's evaluation framework from outcome-based to process-based, from result-focused to execution-focused, from short-term result to long-term distribution, one session at a time, until trust is no longer something you are trying to build. It is something your execution history has already proven. Closing. You do not need a better strategy. You need to trust the one you have. And trust is not built through certainty about outcomes. It is built through repetition of correct process, through executing the plan when doubt says wait, through honoring the stop when hope says hold, through taking the setup when hesitation says skip, through sitting with a losing streak without changing anything, through accumulating the evidence, trade by trade, session by session, that your execution is consistent and your edge is real. That evidence does not arrive quickly. It cannot be rushed. It cannot be shortcutted by a new strategy or a new indicator or a new set of rules. It is built only through one thing: consistent execution of a defined process across a meaningful sample of trades. That is the work. Unglamorous, repetitive, uncomfortable during losing periods, but it is the only work that produces genuine strategic trust. And genuine strategic trust is the only foundation on which consistent trading performance can be built. Stop modifying. Start executing. Let this sample accumulate. Let the evidence speak. Your growth as a trader begins with self-awareness. The rest follows. I'll see you in the next video. Until then, control your mind.